Hello and welcome to another episode of the Retail Journey Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Charles Greathouse.
And I am James Harris, and today we're talking to Bill and Sheila Ford. Bill and Sheila are the founders of the Ozark Mountain Bagel Company, located in towns all throughout Northwest Arkansas. And I can personally vouch for the bagels because I had my weekly dose yesterday, and it's amazing.
Nice.
Welcome to the Retail Journey.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us. It's exciting.
Yeah.
Thanks for traveling all this way
Yes, it's a
from
beautiful
your
day.
central kitchen.
Yeah.
Wore me out, but
Yeah.
We are.
Yeah.
For those that aren't aware of our location, we're right next door to each other, and how we kind of got to know or how I at least got to know Bill. Tell us a little bit of your story. We talk a lot about retail here, but we also talk about Northwest Arkansas. Everybody loves a good founder story. Wherever you want to start, let's dig in.
Okay. Well, James, we grew up in North Central Oklahoma. I was a horrible college student.
I can relate.
And basically went to college 1 year. My parents insisted they had raised themselves kind of out of poverty by education. And so they insisted I go. And so I had to go and prove that I shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
and which I did well. I did
I bet
very
you
well.
could succeed at that.
proving-
Yeah, that's great.
You're successful.
But this was early 80s in Stillwater, Oklahoma. And there was a bagel shop there. And it was guys from Brooklyn. You could go in and you'd have this magnificent bagel, but you'd have, just the banter back and forth. They,
That's
some
fun.
good East Coast people that would just snap at you. And I love that. And so we had children really young. And so I went to work, but kind of always had a dream that I'd like to do something that interacted, with the community. And so I worked in an oil and gas refinery for 30 years. And somewhere
In
maybe
Oklahoma.
in Oklahoma,
Yeah.
yes, North Central Oklahoma. And somewhere, I'd been doing the oil gas for 20 years. And just out of the blue, someone speaking to Sheila said, "Hey, would you guys like to open a bagel shop?" And
How'd you know?
Exactly. That sounds
it was
a little
crazy. Well,
providential.
they'd been in Stillwater around the same time. She was a grade school principal, and her husband worked in the refinery. And she actually, kind of bridged the idea to Sheila. And you can kind of expand on that.
well, so I was a teacher, and Shelley was her name, my principal, good friend, and we were just out on a run, and she's like, "Hey, you want to open a bagel shop with me?" And I said, "No, not at all." And, she
That's
said, "No, really, there's this new bagel shop in Oklahoma City by my parents, and I want to talk to them about bringing bagels back to Stillwater, because the bagel shop that he's speaking of when we were in college was no longer there. It was New York Bagel, and they had sold out, and so there was no bagel shop in Stillwater." So I said, "Well, when we get back to the house, ask Bill. He's talked about open restaurant before, just, wanted to do something in the service industry." So I said, "Ask him," And so when we got back, he had just gotten up off of working nights at the refinery. And we walked in, and she's like, "Hey, you want to open a bagel shop with me?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure." And she's like, "No, really, there's this new bagel shop, blah, blah, blah." And he's like, "No, I'd love to."
Yeah.
She's like, "No, I'm serious. I want to go talk to these guys." And it's like, "Call them."
What don't you understand about yes? That's three yeses.
So, I mean,
love
when
that.
she had the
When
phone,
you get
she's
the
like,
yes, stop talking.
Yes.
yeah. And
Say
so,
less.
they called them, and I think went down the next day. And those guys were like, "Well, you come work for a week. Let's see if this is something you really want to do."
That's
So Bill and Shelley went down there and worked a week, did literally every part of the bagel business, stayed up all night, learned how to bake bagels. And that was, I think, in February. And in August, we opened Old School Bagel in Stillwater, Oklahoma. So that was in 2009.
I like that.
So that was our first bageling, and then we've bageled ever since then.
Yeah, we had it till opened in 2009 and then sold it in 2017. And I was kind of on the end of my 30 years in the refinery, and we were thinking, gosh, what do we want to do? What do we want to do?
We'd always lived in north central Oklahoma and just thought we wanted to move somewhere new, start a new adventure in our lives as we were retiring, and then we didn't.
Yeah,
I love it.
I still have buddies that will text me from the refinery and say, "So you still working a lot more hours for a whole lot less money?" Yes, I am.
Yes.
So
But we had looked, I mean, we had both written down like places we thought would be cool. We love to run trails. And so we were like looking in Oregon, North Carolina, and he did Arkansas Traveler, which is a 100-mile race down,
around Little Rock.
yeah, and met some people from here. And that
This
was,
a race like in a car?
no,
It's
that's
100
running.
miles.
Yeah,
It was a
running.
It was
Yeah.
a run.
Feet.
It's an
Ultra,
ultra, right?
yeah.
Ultra, yes.
Golly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not the sharpest tool in the
Yeah.
shed.
Gee, well, you know how to work.
Yeah,
Tell you
I
that.
do. That I
100
do.
miles. Come on.
That I do. Yeah.
But anyway, they, were talking about all the trails that were being built around here. And so we started coming over from Stillwater over here and just fell in love with it. And we moved over in January of 2017 and thought, well, we already know how to do bagels. We'll just do bagels again. So we opened our first location May of 2017 here.
There wasn't much of a bagel presence here.
Which we were really surprised
There
by.
really wasn't.
And it was the one off of Rainbow Curve.
Yes,
Right,
sir.
Right.
Yeah.
That
Yes.
was the
So I
original.
lived in Cave Springs when you
Mhm.
guys opened.
Yeah.
And so I was a frequent visitor at that stage.
Nice.
I remember like a thing maybe you don't think about when you're opening a new place is like the new smells of the things
Oh, right,
Yes.
right.
that
Yes.
you use.
Mhm.
I just remember that like, wow, like, yeah, got a lot of plastic totes here, don't you guys?
Yeah. Yes.
It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
and they're all new.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I remember that,
funny.
and it was a cool spot, and you guys are doing a lot of things consistently. I feel like it's from a place of purpose. Is that assumption right? Is this wrong? Like, what drives you to do all the things that you do?
Well, we've always said mission over money, and we've always had a mission, and that is to serve people and love on people.
Yeah.
And bagels were kind of just the vehicle that let us do that.
I love it.
Said we're from Oklahoma. It's not like we had this passion for bagels. And so that is like our driving force.
Yeah.
And of course, we want to have good bagels. We want to have, you got to have good
Yeah.
food too.
You're
But
not gonna feel loved if your bagels
right,
kind of
right,
terrible.
right. No matter
Or even
how.
I had
mediocre.
a great
Yeah.
time. It was horrible.
Yeah.
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 They sure were nice, but
Yeah.
no. And if
Yeah.
you've been to Ozark Mountain Bagel, if you're in Northwest Arkansas and you've been there, I don't think that's held quite consistently.
Yeah, I've been in your original one, maybe only 2 or 3 times. It wasn't near where I lived or worked. But since moving in here, like I said, I'm a weekly, right? I'm a type 1 diabetic. I probably shouldn't have more than one bagel a week.
Gotcha.
But
Gotcha.
something I've noticed from the first visit to the last and all the ones in between, you're always met with a smile and a verbal hello. How you doing? And then after that, there's some intangible. You're the guy next door, or have you been in here before? There's a conversation thing that happens, which is nice. And then I notice on your napkins, you always have like an inspirational quote of some sort, and I love those things.
Oh, I do too.
When
That's-
I was a lot younger, I would scour, different people that I knew were like G.K. Chesterton, C.S. Lewis, Winston Churchill, Ronald Reagan, all the different people that were really good at making 1 to 3 sentence things that stuck.
impactful.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
what's your story there? Like, what because that's a unique element that you all bring.
I've always loved quotes, and I've had some great mentors through my career that also just had some things that they love to share. Had a gentleman that John Maxwell. He loved John Maxwell, and John Maxwell had the 19 rules of leadership. And he was just passionate about sowing into other people. And so that kind of stirred my love of quotes. And they've just always meant something to me. And I thought, if we can just put something out there that it just, can kind of somebody slow down and just
makes you think.
Yeah.
Makes you contemplate a little bit. I like Yogi Berra too.
Oh, some of his are so
So
incredibly funny that they're brilliant. They're brilliant,
For sure.
But so we started collecting quotes and try to change them out. We have customers that will give us suggestions, and love that as well when for quotes. So.
Yeah. What are some other elements that you all have, intentionally incorporated this is just kind of part of who we are, our ethos?
You got any ideas? Well, I mean, we've been so fortunate to have amazing employees.
Yeah.
And we try to tell them they don't work for us, they work with us.
Yeah.
Because, and then, try to translate any good review we have, we take it to them and say, this is about you. You're making a difference.
That's great.
And I would say something else, because he actually helped lead leadership training for Phillips 66, the oil and gas company he worked for. And it's amazing the leadership skills that he used and taught in the refinery translates to anything.
Yeah.
And so it's been wonderful, because we, probably 75% of our workforce, their first job, 16, even 15-year-olds, and just the leadership qualities that he's been able to impart, to them.
And that's a great experience for them. You rarely get that in your first job, your first 5 jobs, maybe.
Right. And we know they're not going to bagel forever, obviously. This is a short-term job, but it's amazing how many of the parents come back to us and just, say yes. And how, it is stuff that will translate no matter what they do. Yeah. So, and I feel like that's, has always been part of our mission as well. What can we do help grow these young kids?
One thing for us, just all of this is eventually rust and dust.
Yeah.
It really doesn't matter. It's the relationships that matter. And again, we've been so fortunate with our employees. And one of our first young men, amazing. He was a all-state football player at Bentonville, like second or third in his class. And we told him, don't care that you have these great scholarships to go away to school. You got to find your replacement before you can go. And he really set the standard of taking it really seriously.
Yeah.
And so we challenge all of our kids, think beyond you.
Yeah.
Who could we grow? Who could you see could grow into this? And so it's been really fun.
I love that.
Yeah. And the kids are amazing. They're amazing.
You made the comment about relationships, and I'm just in my mid-40s, but feels like when I was a lot younger, is the things I wanted to do, right? The things I wanted to achieve. And the older I get, I want about 10 people. And then I want to, that's my core. That's the thing that I feed into them. They feed into me. And then it's those sometimes random even relationships that you have with the person that gives you your coffee or whatever, that you can be some kind of a light.
Yeah.
Right.
For
And
sure.
that when I've started trying to think more about that life is about that versus the things I'm doing or the things I have to do, the obligations, kind of makes the obligation stuff a lot more fun and easy to do.
It does.
Yeah.
It absolutely does. And our Wi-Fi password is do today well.
Yeah.
Just because, if you go squandering away today and tomorrow, you squander away your life. Just try to make every day spectacular in one way or another. And unfortunately, in the refinery, I had a fatality under my watch that just so changed kind of my perspective. Amazing, great young man that lost his life. Through no fault of his own. Somebody else made a mistake. And in the end, it was really, truly a failure of leadership, because we let a bad employee be a bad employee, hoping they would change. And it was a failure of leadership, because we allowed it to happen. So,
in that entrepreneurial journey, I mean, even especially restaurants, there's a lot of courage necessary to go from not starting to starting, let alone in a new town, which is pretty
right.
pretty incredible. 2017, pretty big year. What would you have to share from that experience that you'd want, our listeners to learn from?
Well, one thing I can say, and this may be a little unique to Bentonville and Northwest Arkansas, but having done the exact same thing in Stillwater first, and we loved Stillwater, great college town. It was fun. But coming here, the community has been so impactful in our lives, and we didn't have that there. I mean, they were supportive. It wasn't like that, but just the way, just people in the community, both our customers, but also just other business owners, how much I feel like, have fed into us has been amazing. People and businesses that you would think are competitive, those are your competitors.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like from the get-go, they have just reached out. How can we help? Just it's so much more cooperative, and
It's very unique.
yeah.
I think Stillwater is a very transitional town, just by the nature of the college.
Yeah.
So that was certainly different, but she's so right. And when COVID happened, we had so many people buy gift certificates that they've never used.
Wow.
And I mean, it was amazing. It was amazing. And I always say, I always feel like we receive more than we give. It's amazing. The people here and the community. So it's been wonderful.
So there, a lot of restaurants start, and a lot of restaurants fail, very high failure rate, right? What are some pieces of advice to some young or middle-aged or older entrepreneur that wants to start a restaurant retail? Sorry, we didn't plan any of these questions,
yes.
so I'm putting you on the spot.
You understand you can't do it by yourself. You have to have a good team. I think you have to listen to people's ideas about doing things maybe a little different too, being adaptable. And I think a good leader is almost like a chameleon that can, change a little bit. And, but I think it takes determination and hard work. For me, it takes an unbelievable partner that, I'm a very, let's leap out of the plane. We'll figure out the parachute on the way down.
We heard the story for the first bagel shop, which was no.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, if you want a yes, I know a guy.
Yeah.
Go ask Bill.
But
I'm back there packing the parachute while I'm
Like,
hearing him
hold
say
on.
yes. So we're going. Okay.
it's gonna be good.
I love
but
that.
I mean,
It's
but
gonna
I
be
always,
good. That's your line.
I say it's going to be great.
yeah.
Uh,
But I always say that somehow I break all these things, and she makes beautiful stained glass windows out of them.
Yeah.
But and surround yourself with people different than you. That's one thing I often love to do on a super busy Saturday. To have those high school kids at the end of the day just say, look around you. These are not necessarily who you'd hang out with at school. But coming together, you guys did so great.
Yeah.
And surround yourself with people different than you, And so, but it takes a lot of hard work and determination and adaptability. And finding a niche too is kind of key.
That's key.
So, yeah.
There is a temptation when you start something, especially when it's small, to think you want a bunch of views. Because you know what has made you what you think you are, right? So you're like, if I could just clone, and there isn't another you, right? Everybody's different. The key is to make them the best they can be, right? And to give them what they need, and it might be something you didn't need. You needed something else, right?
Allow them to be
study the people around you.
Yeah.
If you're a leader, to figure out what it is they need from you to be
absolutely,
the best they can be.
Absolutely. So,
can we talk about customers?
Absolutely.
Understanding customers. We're in retail. You're in retail. Retail's a little different. Although I do hear there's some Walmart campus maybe stuff going on. I'm not sure if that's out there.
We do have a location in the new food hall at the Walmart,
which is so exciting.
Yes.
Wasn't my original question. I got distracted by myself. I look forward to hopefully getting to visit that with some friends that are associates. But when you think about understanding customers, what advice would you have for folks? I worked at Walmart for a long time, and the customer is king. Who's number one? The customer always. Have you heard the cheer?
No.
You haven't heard the
Probably
cheer?
As we're walking through,
All right,
maybe.
we'll work through, you're going to
Okay.
hear the cheer, at 8th and Plate. That's going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, customers, what the focus is, and, with the scale and size of Walmart, customer understanding tends to happen with data. Because you can't talk to 130 million people every week that are in a Walmart. You guys have the benefit of being pretty close, but no longer just one location. So there is this sort of understanding of customer that has to expand. I'd love to hear your thoughts on, early days feedback. How important was that, and how has that evolved the journey of Ozark Mountain Bagel?
I kind of think from the word go, the customer is always right. We never really bought into that. Right is always right.
I like that.
So we would do all we could to try to please a customer, but we're not going to do wrong.
I like that.
To make someone happy. And I've said that some people, if you gave them a bag of money, they'd complain it's too heavy.
Yeah.
Some people just, I don't know what it is. They're just not going to be happy. But we got great feedback from people, suggestions. And, I think you have to have your core lane, but I think you can sway a little bit and change your course a little bit.
Yeah.
And most of our customers have been wonderful.
Right.
Wonderful. I can, probably name on one hand people that are memorable in a poor way.
Do you have their pictures up somewhere in the?
I'd rather not say. Yeah.
I did a lot of restaurant work, and as a kid, and then in college age, and things like that. And I enjoyed it. I love the rush. I love the challenge of like making it happen, and then feeling good about it when you got it done. But in those environments, in any kind of retail, you're often meeting people at kind of a bad time. No, not all the time, but sometimes somebody's having the worst day,
right?
And you're the intersection. They're angry at something else, and now they're talking to you. And that's and for a teenage kid, it's one thing for an adult to kind of see that. I've had those days, like you can relate a little
Absolutely.
bit. But for your teenage kids, how do you talk to them at all about that? About what maybe a difficult or an angry customer, how that gets
we
handled?
always say you have to remember, though, the way you react to someone says more about you than it does about them. Yeah. So if no matter how they're treating you, it's how you treat them back. And it's hard. We've all been in those
situations.
Yeah.
And we like to ask them, okay, the next person that comes in, can you tell me what's going on in their world? And they're like, well, no, you're exactly right. You just don't know. Yeah. You just don't know, because everybody's struggling with something. Everybody is battling something. Yeah. They just may hide it very well.
Or not.
Or not, yeah.
Or not.
Yeah. And another thing we try to really reinforce with them is on those Saturdays that the line goes all the way to the door, never look at the back of the line. There is absolutely nothing you can do to help somebody that's at the back of the line. The back of the line will eventually be there. You just focus on that person in front of you, engage them well, and that'll all come around. And then try to turn it to life. That sometimes in life we worry about things we can't control instead of worry about the things we can. And they're so receptive. And again, it's just almost generational with the kids to sew into the next group. And Sheila came up with just some kind of leadership things where will elevate someone to a shift lead, give them some more responsibility, that they'll really work with the newbies, and really make a difference and teach them responsibility, and so it's been really fun. I mean,
my daughter works at a cookie shop, and she
Lucky.
recently got the the shift supervisor thing. So we have to drop her car off to get some stuff done, and I'm going to give her a ride. And she goes, but I got to be there 10 minutes early because I'm a shift lead and I want to be ready. Right?
Love it.
To the right person, it brings them up to have a little bit more responsibility.
Yep.
So how many locations do we now have, Ozark Mountain Bagel?
So 4 of our locations, and then 2 that are license agreements, basically franchise type.
Exciting.
So that's the downtown Rogers one. And that one is owned by the Dobson family, who Nicole Dobson was our manager at the Square for 4 years. So, I mean, someone who totally buys into our mission. And 2 of her kids worked for us as well. So
I love that.
And then we have the Walmart location at 8th and Plate.
Yeah. Is it open now?
It is open.
And that's just for, like, it's behind the curtain, so to speak.
It is. It is.
Because there will be a public facing, there'll be several
Retail,
public facing places to
along
go
8th Street there.
eat.
Yes.
Yes. This is just right now part of the food hall that's just employees.
Awesome.
Only.
And then the other 4 are downtown Bentonville.
Rainbow Curve.
Technically, Northwest 11th Street.
Right. Right. We call North Walton, but
which is North Walton Boulevard, which is, James said earlier, we're right next door. We're in the same building. That's how next door.
Yes.
So our starting address is the same. Our suite number is different than your suite number, which is pretty great. If you really love
we do
carbs,
get each other's mail and
100%. Got a package from you today. Thank you. You guys are the best. But yeah, so if you love carbs and analyzing data and helping brands grow at Walmart, you can work here at High Impact, or if you really just prefer the bagels and just want to be near people who love data, you work right over there at Ozark Mountain Bagel. So those 2, and then Rainbow Curve, which is the OG original location, and the 4th
Johnson Mill.
Okay, great. Yeah, there's
down by Pizzeria Ruby and El Mello.
Okay.
Yep. We're just at the other corner of the building.
Awesome. A culinary destination.
That's right.
There you go. There you go.
Breakfast, lunch, and whatever.
Yeah. All right. And then from a trend standpoint, because I love trends, what's the tried, true, faithful, this bagel, everybody loves this bagel. And what's this one's, we're starting to see it take off.
Well, the everything bagel is definitely the most popular bagel flavor.
No doubt.
Sure.
How about that?
Trending, I would say the rosemary salt, which is a new flavor for us.
Introduced by Sheila.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's my favorite.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the consumption's more than Sheila. Other people. You said trending. I wasn't sure if this is like
I might be
Sheila's
helping
trending.
the trend
Yeah,
a little
helping
bit.
the trend.
She got to sway on that. Yeah.
Rosemary salt.
Rosemary salt. Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
I like that. I'll try.
If you haven't tried it, you should try it. And have you tried our new gluten-free bagels?
I have. I tried it the first round, and probably the best gluten-free bagel that I've had.
There
which
you go.
if you don't get to have gluten, which is me right now, bagels aren't really my primary destination.
Right. Understandable.
But
Yes.
as a gluten-free bagel, that was the best one for sure.
Yeah, that's Matt. He's, I guess is it his daughter that's gluten free?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And so she's become a big fan of the gluten free bagels. So
I love that.
yeah.
Yeah. I remember he walked by the other day carrying a bag. So Matt's our chief operating officer here.
Yeah.
And as neighbors do, I think he got a
Bagels.
whole bag of those.
That's
Yes,
right.
yes,
That's
yeah.
right.
Which is awesome.
Yep.
Yeah. I guess when you run, you got to have some good source of carbs, and he's got some runners in his family.
Nice.
And you do a little running.
I do. I'd like to get back to much more of it, but business takes a little time.
3 a.m. wake up call doesn't allow much running in the morning.
Yes.
So
Yes. So
So night running, when does it transition from night to morning?
I don't know. Sometimes my watch says good evening instead of good morning when we get up. So
yeah.
Yeah, good evening.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
But I worked rotating shift work for 28 years that I switched days to nights. So I've always kind of a strange bird. So
I love it.
One of my favorite things in business is vision. I love to think about the future, and I like to kind of have an idea of where we're going and kind of where I'd like to land. And you may not be able or want to talk about it, but what's the vision for Ozark Mountain Bagel?
well, I think kind of our saying too is spreading joy, love, and cream cheese. We'd love the opportunity to grow, but we want to be purposeful about that and not just grow for the sake of growing. It's got, we're working on kind of a franchise package so it'd just be a cut and paste, for new franchisees, but really work on vetting them hard.
Yeah.
Totally. Just so the feel is the same, that you could go in and
It's just cream cheese, and you don't have joy and love.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. It's just
It's not
it's
the
just
same.
Well, Chick-fil-A's been very successful
right.
with that model,
Yes.
making sure they have the right person come
Absolutely.
in to lead a store.
Absolutely.
well, we want it to be a blessing to that family, that person too who's opening it, because it can be a burden, and we don't want to do that to people, because we know how hard it is.
Yeah.
So it's not just vetting them as far as are they right for Ozark Mountain Bagel, but we want to make sure Ozark Mountain Bagel is right for them as well. But that's kind of our growth model. We are done opening. Get that, please. We are done opening ourselves. We would like to actually retire at some point in our lives, because we are getting old.
yes.
So
Tired. And
Retired to
Yes.
just run 100-mile races.
that's what I would like to do.
Yeah.
That's what I would like to do.
be a different kind of tired.
Yes.
maybe.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
So that's kind of the growth model right now. We're really working on this franchise model. We know there's so many more places in even just Northwest Arkansas that,
30-something people a day settle here, right? It's
Amazing.
amazing growth.
It's
Yeah,
amazing.
and so
Forecasted
many
to
areas
continue.
are growing, Pea Ridge, Centerton, and
Farmington.
there's just so many.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
that's kind of what we're working on right now.
That's beautiful.
Awesome.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, you want to go to lightning?
Let's do it.
All right.
Lightning.
Oh, lightning round?
Hold on.
Usually,
We have some zingers. You're
we
not.
have
Oh,
just
this is
a-
the
I
zinger time?
I had
Okay.
Just no,
Get the
they're
buzzer
not
ready.
singers, but we try to have a culture here where it's okay to make a mistake. Right? And in fact, if you're not making mistakes, you're probably not pushing real hard.
If you can't make a
we say
mistake,
fail,
you can't make a
fail
mistake.
fast frequently. So what's a big failure in your business or previous business or whatever that you learned a lot from? And it's kind of something you've incorporated that learning into how you operate today.
Probably trying to be a leader that micromanaged everything initially. And one of my favorite quotes is, the legacy of a leader is the leaders they leave behind. And I had some great mentors, and one lady one day came down, and we were having problems in the refinery, and she said, okay, tell me what we're doing. I said, well, we did this. We hope that helps. We're doing this. We hope that did it. We doing this. She said, hope's not a plan. Make me a plan. And I was like, wow, that's a punch in the gut. But it was just allowing people to do their job and grow, and thank them for what they do, and tell them that you truly appreciate them. I think that's kind of I thought I had to be too gruff and be something I wasn't. So that was a big learning for me.
Yeah.
You got a zinger for that?
Oh, I would say for me, I get really wrapped up in details, and I'm very introverted, and I would be more than happy just to be in the back of the house working on my to-do list. This is where the us together is good, because he's very extroverted and he's out there talking to people.
I've
And
lost my to-do list.
Yeah.
That's somewhere.
it says to do,
Oh,
and then that's
yeah,
as far as you got.
yeah.
I like that.
And so it's kind of been a learning experience for me, having to be out there talking to people, and I thoroughly enjoy it, but it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so, just being comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've just had to learn how to do that, I guess.
What about you all?
Failure?
Yeah.
Oh, we'll be asking the question.
No, I was the hub of this thing for far too long. Like when you start a business that's just one person and then kind of goes to 3, 4, 5 people, there was a period of time when I had about 7 or 8 people that, if you picture a wheel and a hubcap, and I was the hubcap, and everything had to come to me before it went out. And I became the logjam. I became the reason we couldn't grow.
But it was with good intentions that you were doing that.
But
And
good
that's
intentions can take you to heaven or to hell.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Oh.
Yeah.
well said.
Yeah.
Well said.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was making that transition to, I need to do more leading than doing, which was kind of the first phase. And then eventually I need to just delegate, elevate, and lead.
Well, that's kind of 3 years before I started doing the leadership training for Phillips 66. I had someone that put me on a performance improvement plan and gave me real, honest feedback. And they told me feedback is a gift. And, if they're being accurate, it's going to sting a little bit. And the same stones can neither be stumbling blocks or building blocks. And it was great. It hurt, and it was completely accurate. And I needed to make come on. I thought I was perfect. But it was really good for me to hear that I was not as good as I perceived I was.
Yeah.
And be willing to change. So, and then 3 years later, I'm asked to be part of a team that designed this training and led the training for all of Field
What a
66.
transformation.
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
It was. But it was other people that again were the stepping stones for me to get where I needed to be.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I guess I can answer
Okay.
a failure. I think probably the most recent would be I get pretty passionate. I think you've got a lot of passion in you. I get excited about different things. I've got ideas. Sometimes my brain's pretty nonlinear. And a failure to recognize that enthusiasm, when it turns into talking over someone, does nothing but just make them feel talked down to, disregarded, not listened to, and I'm blissfully ignorant of that impact on anybody around me. Just grateful that we're moving and we're shaking and we're getting somewhere. And so I've gotten that feedback, and the failure is the fact that it has happened, and I do that, and I'm so grateful for feedback. It is a gift. Does it feel good to realize, like, oh no, I made you feel that way? Like, oh darn.
Yeah.
Come
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to do that. And I think, they knew that, but that's been a most recent point of failure that's been brought to my attention. And really what it does is it makes me want to sit back. I'm like, all right, what is someone not telling me? So that I
What
make
else
sure
am I
that I'm
doing?
actually creating the space for
Mhm.
feedback, and that doing that in a way that's going to be productive for them, and everybody feels safe to do that.
Mhm.
It's one of my mentors said, on the feedback as a gift to people, you say, I want your feedback. Please give me your feedback. It does a couple of things. One, it gives them permission to give you that, but it also kind of changes your attitude that you're prepared
Oh yeah,
to get that
receive
That's a
feedback.
great point.
And so you're receptive to it. And,
yeah. Super grateful for it.
yes,
Mhm.
yes,
Frankly,
yes.
My example was in business. I have some real humdingers in the personal life.
Oh, nice.
yeah.
Go from zingers to humdingers. We're going to be rhyming all afternoon.
I love it.
Okay.
All right, and lastly, y'all are intentional people. You like quotes. What are you reading, listening to, kind of taking in right now? And it can be for fun. It can be for something else.
Do you have
Or
something?
do you even have time between the business and the running?
No, we sit and do devos every morning, and hers are deeper than mine. But I love like Bob Goff and just some of his simple
Oh yeah.
things that you see in life that he can somehow transform into a great lesson.
Yeah.
And I love that.
That's love does, right?
Yes, love
Yeah.
doves. And then I have one that's just every day,
Oh, cool.
through the year, and just some of the things that he says, it really strikes home with me. So, what
I like
about
that.
you?
Oh, besides that, I mean, we're doing reading through the Bible and Bible recap, and we're not really doing anything.
What are you in right now?
Well,
Doing the
we're
New Testament.
We did the Old Testament last year and started the New Testament, and then just kind of quit. And so we're started over with the New Testament this
Cool.
year. Yeah,
Probably Matthew.
yeah. We're in Luke right now.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's chronological, so you do some jumping
All
around.
right. Nice.
Yeah,
But
which
right
is
now
pretty
it's in
interesting.
Luke, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Do you all have any suggestions of some great reads?
I mean, love does
Mhm.
is such a good one. I say we. I read a book. It was actually given by one of our other sweet mates here called The Go Giver.
Mhm.
That's just about it's a play on go getter.
Mhm.
We've got a lot of drive to go accomplish things, and what's it look like to, instead of going and trying to get, look intentionally to go to give, and it seems like your ethos is exactly that. It's a short
Who's it
read.
by?
That's a great question.
Okay.
Well,
I have read it. I've read it
read it too,
multiple
and I couldn't
times.
tell you
and
who
I-
wrote
yeah.
it.
Okay.
And it's
Well, we'll
written
get-
by a
Look it
great
up.
author.
It's one of the
Yeah.
books that we give all of our new employees
Oh, love
when they
that.
join us.
Love that.
And that's why I said we, because James has read it, and we've lots of the team have, and it's just that mindset, mission over money.
Mhm.
There's a deep irony. The motivation is for the impact on the individual, but the
Right.
reality is you have an impact on someone, then they're happy to return again,
Mhm.
and so it ends up making a great business.
Right.
Right.
And it's like if you missed the point and you went to go get, you're not going to have deep loyalty and relationships that are authentic. But if you have authentic relationships, then
It
and you do the
naturally-
right thing because you're focused on the right thing, then it will naturally create a lot of
Oh, I love that.
benefit.
The go getter.
The go giver.
Go giver.
Go giver.
Okay.
I got it.
So
She's
much.
got it.
Yeah,
I got
yes,
it.
you got to have a Sheila in your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
The most recent one for me that kind of stood out. I do a lot of fiction, so I won't go into that. It's a book called The Four Agreements, and it somebody recommended it. I probably wouldn't have read it otherwise. But you ever you find yourself where things just aren't clicking. You're not connecting with people the way you want. You're more frustrated, aggravated. It's just that it's not gelling. And this book says there's 4 agreements that if you make them with yourself, you kind of fall out of those situations of expecting things from other people, of expecting them to serve you in some way in a relationship. And it was useful for me.
Okay,
Well, thank
cool.
you so much for
Oh
joining
yeah,
us.
Thanks
such
for
a
having
pleasure.
us.
Such
A great
pleasure.
deal. I
And
really
nice to
appreciate it.
learn more about you all.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. We should chat more over bagels sometime and some good coffee.
There you
that
go.
sounds
We got
great.
both those things.
Yes,
I love it.
Yes.
And thank you all, as always, for listening. You can check out any of our podcasts on our website, highimpactanalytics.com, video, audio, as well as on YouTube and anywhere you download your podcasts. Thank you very much for joining us.